And that should not be a pro cycling level, just to get more people on bikes, that more people enjoy riding a bike. And yeah, but Arnold also really likes to have like more children into the sport, not at a high level, but that they just discover the bike, how fun it is. Yeah, you have a BMX background, you told me. I said, just told you, like, yeah, that's actually a sport, BMX, cyclocross, what I really like for children, because they really discover there how fun it is to ride a bike. And I think that is where it all starts. It should be fun to start riding the bike, to do a sport, and that can bring you to a pro cycling life and retire with 40 years old, like I did, with fun still on the bike. That's really the base for me for have a good life.
Movement, branding for the bike industry. Together with thought leaders of our industry and branding specialists, we're discussing the art of emotional brand building. Today's episode is a special one, since we recorded it live in front of an audience during the VELO Berlin Bike Festival, one of Europe's biggest cycling consumer events held at the iconic Tempelhof Airport. And our guest doesn't need a long introduction. Annemiek van Vleuten is one of the greatest cyclists of her generation. 4-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist, and the first woman to win all 3 Grand Tours in a single season. And someone who spent 16 years at the very top of her sport, always with a new goal, always raising the bar. But what we really wanted to talk about goes beyond the victories. How she came to cycling late, after knee injury ended her football career, and how a single physiological test changed the course of her life. We talk about Rio 2016 and what that crash actually gave her. What it means to be a pivotal figure in the professionalization of women's cycling, from earning 800 euros a month to racing the world's biggest stages. About what Kenyon got right when others hesitated. About minimum wages, equal prize money, and why TV coverage still has a very long way to go. And about what she wants her movement to actually be, beyond the pole bars. So turn it up and let's go back to Berlin. Here's Annemiek and me, Tim. So hello everybody. I know most of you guys are here most likely because of Annemiek, but I just quickly want to use the chance to introduce myself. My name is Tim. I run a strategic branding studio called ADLIPS, and due to my parents, I'm lucky that I am in the bike industry since my whole life. And 2 years ago, we started a new project, which is the Movement Podcast, where we interview people who have accomplished remarkable things or have an interesting perspective onto our industry, the bike industry. But enough of me. Welcome, Annemiek. Welcome to the Movement Podcast.
Thank you.
To kick things off, I think most people know that you're a bicycle rider, but what many people maybe don't know is that you have a science degree and that you played football before you went into cycling.
Yeah, so I had a really good student time. I was really enjoying student life in the days, but also in the evenings/nights. But then I got an injury in my knee I think when I was 23, and the doctor told me, like, yeah, the only sport you should do is actually or cycling or swimming. And I'm a really big fan of being outdoors, so swimming was not my first preference. So I was like, okay, then I buy a bike, and sports actually I only knew from following it on television. Like my parents are zero sportive. So I cannot say that they stimulated me to go get into sport. But we watched a lot football, ice speed skating, but also cycling. I watched as a young girl. But yeah, to be able to think that I would ever be a professional cyclist myself, at that time, the job was not even existing. Being professional cyclist for women, at the time I started, 23 years old, that job didn't exist. I think there were like 1 to 3 girls that had a normal salary out of cycling, and that was it. For the rest, it was an amateur sport when I started.
When you started any sport, you never had really the intention to become professional in any of those sports, whether it was football or anything else. But what made cycling eventually make you change your mind that you become professional?
Yeah, so you couldn't dream for being a professional because it was not existing in cycling. But also without that, if it would have existed, I would have never dreamed about it. Because I think my driving force has always been to discover my talent. It made me so hungry. I think it was in 2007 that I did my first physical test on an indoor bike with like oxygen mask, stimulated by my coach at that time from the local cycling club said like maybe you should do a test. I did it at Papendal, which is our national sports center in the Netherlands, where also all the other cyclists at that time were also tested. Yeah, and then I did push numbers that those girls were also pushing. Only not per kilogram body weight, because I had still a little bit of student kilos in my body, so I had a quite a high fat percentage. But absolute numbers were really good, and that for me was the trigger. Like, hey, I have talent in my genes. Apparently, I have a lot of power. I have really high oxygen uptake. I should do more with this talent, or at least I should discover like where this talent can bring me.
And the science degree that you also have, did this history of you in science help you? How do you approach your training and your preparation for races and so forth?
Yeah, for sure. In Wageningen University, where I studied, for sure they teach me how to have like an attitude of like always questioning things. So also my coaches later on had to deal with that. I always asked my coach like, why should I do this? Or can you explain me why this is a good training approach? So actually my coach really liked it that I had this attitude. But I think what I learned in my university degree is that, yeah, stay critical, ask questions, read about things. And I think that attitude helped me to understand my trainings, but also to make better a plan how to get the best out of myself. And also it helped me maybe, I was quite goal driven. So I always set the bar and set new goals every year.
Yes.
Also because I started late, I knew that I had to set every time goals to set quickly steps, because I knew I started late. I need to make steps every year really quickly. Yeah, that also helped me with that.
Yeah, you mentioned that you started very late with 24, I believe. You only started racing bikes professionally or like semi-professionally in the beginning. So, and you also mentioned that you asked a lot of questions. Is this the right approach for an athlete that starts so late, that maybe doesn't, get it in their blood early in their life when they're like teenagers or even kids when they start riding, that they then go out and ask people who are better in the sport, and they don't have the ego, so that they ask people and how they did it, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a little bit the strategy that you followed.
Yeah, it's true. I think in general, I really like from athletes when I see that they have the intrinsic motivation in themselves. So to get the best out of themselves, not because the parents say they need to go cycling, they need to go training, but because they're just eager and keen to discover discover their talent. And I think, yeah, that is doing by questioning, that is doing by set your own goals. And not that it's set by others. And I really believe in this in principle, that good athletes have the motivation in their heart.
Yeah, well, you the best proof of that. 16 years at the top. You said you set yourself a goal every year, and every year, without a fail, as far as I'm concerned, you reach that goal that you set for yourself. How did you get that drive? Was there like a pivotal moment in your life where you said, "Okay, I really can do what I put in my head"? Did you already maybe had this mindset before you went into cycling?
Yeah, by the way, like I did fail a lot. So I think also that was one part of my development, that I crashes a lot, but also did fail a lot. But I learned from my mistakes. And I think that is also, yeah, one of my ways how I did develop making mistakes and learn from it.
You
I
learned quickly then, eh?
Yeah, and one lesson I had to learn really the hard way, and I think that was the Rio Olympics. And maybe that was actually, for me, a turnaround point in my career. Before I did win already some races. I did win already Tour of Flanders in 2011. But 2016, the Rio Olympics, I was on my way to the gold medal. Maybe people, if they know it, they can Google it. Annemiek van Vleuten crash Rio.
Most horrific crash I've ever seen.
Yes, and I was on my way to the gold medal, and then I misjudged the corner, and that way I didn't become Olympic champion. And before that, I did win some nice races, but yeah, winning Olympic gold medal, that is something different. So I learned there the hard way. I would say that yeah, my life without that gold Olympic medal was also still nice and the same, but it also learned me, like, what can I still take out of this moment from the Rio? Not being sad about it, But it became my driving force about like, hey, if I set a goal, and that is becoming a better climber, what I needed for the Rio Olympics, if I set a goal, then I am suddenly maybe the best climber of the world in the Olympic Games, in the road race. And it made me so eager and so keen to discover more, and it stimulated me to set more goals and to discover more of myself. And it made me more keen to discover my talent. So instead of being sad about it, that I missed out on that gold medal, it made me really hungry for more and to discover myself more and to set more goals.
Bring us back to that moment when you decided to attack on that hill in Rio, because I read an interview with you where you said that this was like a changing moment in your career, that you said, okay, I can do this. Well, you crashed afterwards, but what happened with you mentally when you said, okay, I'm gonna break out now, I'm gonna attack?
Yeah, so actually I was not the leader for that race. So we had Anne van der Breggen was a number one leader. And she was also the best climber. I didn't, before Rio, people don't know, but I never did win a race uphill. So it was also normal that I was not leader there. I was not a climber. I was usually the one that was hanging on in that top 10 group and then struggling in the back on the elastic band, like coming back. So I was not a climber at that time. And yeah, when Anne van der Breggen told me in the race, like she was not feeling so well and she couldn't attack anymore, and I still felt really good. It was an eye opener. Like that was the first time in my life, like, whoa, I am the best climber here, cannot attack anymore, and I have still something in my legs to attack. And I was dropping then everyone uphill. Yeah, that was such an eye opener that because in the first 10 years of my career, I always heard from my coaches and from the people around me, you are not a climber. Focus you on the 90% of the races that you can win, but please don't focus on the climbing races. So I had it really strong in my head, and maybe it was until the end of my career that I had sometimes a small voice in my head like, you are not a climber. And it was really hard if someone puts yourself in a box, and especially if you put yourself in a box, in that box of put letters on it like you are not a climber, to get yourself out of that. And I think maybe people recognize it, that they sometimes get in a certain certain box, and it's a big challenge to get yourself out of it. And even being the best climber there in the Rio Olympics was hard for myself to turn that in my head. Because when my DS at that time, Jean Bates, said from Miston Scott, where my Australian team, that I was going to attack for the next year, 2017, the year after Rio, for the Giro d'Italia, the first thing I said, like, yeah, but I'm not a climber. And I just showed in the Olympics something different, but it was still in my head, like, no, I cannot do that. It was a challenge to get that mindset different.
And did you use it as a superpower then afterwards, that you say, okay, now I have proved this, now I can always say, okay, I proved them wrong? Or when did this change that you then eventually get self-confident enough that you say, okay, now I'm a climber?
Now, I think my DS really knows me really well because I like a challenge. So it was out of my comfort zone. And he said to me, I still know his words, just planting a seed. And it took me half a year, I think, to digest it a little bit. But then I thought, okay, we go for this challenge. And if you have the right people around you, also my coach, my physical coach, really embraced this goal. And then if you right people around you, it was also an eye-opener. Then you can achieve more than you ever thought you're able to. So sometimes you need people around you to set goals and to set challenges out of your comfort zone to get yourself to a higher level.
You created yourself some sort of momentum, right? And your rivals at the time, they always said, we can only beat her when she's sick or when she's missing the race or something like that. Do you think at the time when you were racing that you basically were responsible that the sport got better, or was it more like it got harder for other people to watch because it said, it's boring, Annemiek gonna win anyways?
Yeah, so I don't really agree. For example, there are a lot of races still that I didn't win in my career. Also in the Ardennes classes, like with Flash Wallon, I never did win. Amstel Gold Race, never did win. But I was always part of the show. I was always there fighting, attacking. So I was really made those races, I think, attractive. But it is true that at that time there were less competitors as compared to now. I'm very happy that nowadays you have way more and more women that are fighting each other for the win. So at that time, I think I was a little bit ahead of other women because there was not so much money yet involved in women's cycling. So you need to organize your own training camps, your own altitude camps. I also challenged a little bit the idea of that we should train only for the hours we are racing. I challenged a little bit that concept, and I'm really a bit proud of that, that nowadays also women are training not for the length of the race, but they train just to be the most fit athletes in the last hour of the race. And that is sometimes with also training, do a training of 6 hours. And yeah, I think I challenged a little bit that mindset of that women should not train so much. I like it. But also with the altitude, I think in the beginning of, I did 3 altitude camps, I think, per year. And a lot of journalists asked me, why are you doing so much altitude? And I asked them like,
Because I'm Dutch. No.
no, I said like, you don't ask this to my man colleagues. Why do you ask me this? Like, and then they were like, yeah, that is true. The men were going 3 times at altitude. I was also doing it, but I got the questions. I had to give arguments why I was doing it. And yeah, why I was doing it, it gave me a big advantage over other women because I was the only one that was doing it at that time because I really believed in it. Okay, I had to pay it myself, but I like to invest in myself and to get the best out of myself. And part of that was, yeah, to live a lot of days on altitude.
And do you consider yourself being a pivotal figure in the sport then? That the sport got more professional and got more attention and so forth?
Yeah, it's hard to say that about yourself, I would say. I think I triggered a little bit that concept of training to get the sport more professional. I'm really happy that nowadays when girls go 3 or 4 times per year on altitude, that they don't get that question anymore from that they need to give an argument why they go so often to altitude. It's a good thing that the women's sport got way more professional. And yeah, I was part of this maybe I contributed a little bit to it, but I think there are way more other factors that contributed that the sport is now become so much more professional in so many ways.
Yeah, let's talk about how where we stand with women's cycling right now. So in 2011, I believe you still earned 800 euros a month and you paid 200 euros in rent.
In my student house, I was still living in my student house at that time.
Exactly, and you still decided to go full-time into the sport. You must have loved cycling a lot at the time, eh?
Yeah. I quit my job that I had with my university degree, and I decided to go full time for cycling because I want to get the best out of myself, and I knew that for that I needed to train more. And that was really the love for the sport. And I think still in women's cycling, there's nowadays more money involved, but there's still, I would say, 99% of the people still do it for the love of the sport. And I really hope, I think there's a treasure of the sport, and I really hope that we keep it. That is the motivation.
And you think you were the one with the biggest love at the time because you were so far ahead of so many other women at the time?
No. I really see that there were already at that time a lot of women that have that passion to get the best out of themselves, but maybe I was just the most proactive in it. Being Dutch, I got a little bit of that proactiveness to make that plan, to get the best out of myself. I think it's also one of the reasons where in the beginning there were so many Dutch girls were so well, because we have a little bit that attitude of if it's not arranged for ourselves, then we are going to arrange it ourselves. Whereas I see sometimes in other countries, women are a bit more waiting until it's organized for them. And I think that gave us an advantage. But nowadays, I'm super happy that it's organized for all the women and that the Dutch girls don't have that advantage anymore, because we need the sport become more international. And yeah, we see also now people girls from other countries and especially outside Europe competing, and that makes me super happy. We need sport to become more international. Also, I would say from a commercial point of view, is important.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of progress has been done recently. So in 2021, when you won the Flanders, your prize money was roughly around 1,000 euros, where the men already got 20,000 euros. I believe this year it was equal. So what do you think was the moment, or why do you think that shift happened now, that the prize money is equal now to the men?
Yeah, it's actually always a topic I try to avoid a little bit, because for me, prize money in sport and to have it equal was always a bit, I would say, like a bit tiring for me, because for me, this is not where we should start to develop women's cycling. It's nice that it's now all arranged and equal, and for sure it's a really good thing. But I'm more happy that the organizers say it now ourselves, like, no, it's normal that we pay the same. I like it that it's not done with pressure, but that organizations say it from themselves, like, oh no, we want to pay the same to the women. But for me, always have been way more important that we start with the minimum salary for all the women in cycling, because this is how you grow women's cycling, not by the prize money that goes only to the winners and a little bit of their teammates. How to grow women's cycling is that to make sure that everyone can go full time for the sport, and to make sure that everyone has that minimum salary. And nowadays we achieve that in the World Tour, at least. Hopefully also at the lower levels we will achieve soon some kind of minimum salary. So we also get growth from below. But I think nowadays we see that, and I think this give a big boost in women's cycling. With coming new, every year we hear new names, and that makes it super exciting at the moment for women's cycling, that who is now the new name that we will see this year in the Tour de France.
Talking about the Tour de France, Femme, what do you think this event did to the brand women's cycling, in terms of broadcasting, sponsors? How important was it that this event occurred?
Bigger than I ever could imagine. Like, I cannot say how big it was that we start to race the women's Tour de France. I was first a little bit skeptical when they organized it, a bit Dutch maybe, like first see, then we will believe. They brought it really big. But yeah, it was after I did race and I came home being the winner of the first edition, I really could see that a lot of people watched it and follow it, and we got a lot of followers there. But most important, I think, for me was that they want to organize this Women's Tour de France for us, not because they felt the pressure they should also organize something for women. No, they really want to organize the race because they saw from a financial and a commercial perspective that the became interesting for them. And that made me really proud. Like, suddenly became also from that perspective interesting for them. And I think that did help the sport grow a lot for sponsors, for commercial reasons, and for the organization.
And if you would need to sum up right now, where would you say we stand with women's cycling right now, if you compare it to men, from your perspective?
Yeah, I always find it a little bit hard. I don't want to compare women's cycling with men, because I think we are a product that should stand alone on itself. I understand your question, of course, but I think it's dangerous a little bit to do that comparison. I think we really should focus on women's cycling as a product on its own. But yeah, where we stand, like, now we are now here. It's on the day of Paris-Roubaix. We have it on the same day this year for the first time, the women and the men. Which is on one hand a good thing, because the women will profit from all the audience that is already there for the men's race. But on the other hand, I'm also sad, because we have only 90 minutes, I think, if we're lucky, broadcasted live on television. And maybe women's cycling is ready for a separate day, that they have the full focus on the women's race, that we have 2 days Paris-Roubaix. Yeah, there are pros and cons on this in the new approach. But yeah, this will cause that we only have 90 minutes Paris-Roubaix. And I think the women's race is also interesting from the beginning to the finish.
So do you think when the races would be separated, let's say Saturday the females, Sunday the men, you think we would have equally many people as spectators on the side of the track?
No, for sure not. No, this is something that we need to grow. So in that way, I think the women will have today way more goosebumps, because there's so many people watching it. So that is a really cool thing, that it's on the same day. And also we profit that the men's race is finished, people keep on watching. So we get new spectators. So that's a good thing. I don't say it's only a bad move. It has also had some pros. But yeah, for example, with the Tour de France, I'm happy we have a separate event. You will never win it from the men's Tour de France. You never win that battle. So it's super good that they started to have it connected to the men's Tour de France, started after the last day. So to have it connected, but not on the same day.
And let's talk about sponsorships in female cycling. Do you see, I mean, you have a great sponsor, obviously, but do you see any structural disadvantages among your fellow women in the sport, that they, in terms of budgets and everything?
Yeah, of course, it's still lower and still unequal. Some teams have really high budgets now, and it's not equally divided. There's still quite in the World Tour. I would really like to see that there's more equal the budgets. So some teams are super professional already, and some teams in the World Tour they need to improve and to step up. Otherwise, we get discrepancy between those teams. So that I would love to see. Yeah, it would be also good for if we have more time broadcasted live on television. I think also that makes it more interesting for the sponsors. I think something we see already in the Women's Tour de France, that there are a lot of sponsors that came into women's cycling because they have like so much attention on the television, so much more viewers. Also, the viewers were exceeding exactly the expectations they had for the Tour de France. So yeah, that made me quite really proud, I would say. And I think we can continue this.
Hmm. And your sponsor, Canyon SRAM, they were obviously believing in female cycling from very early on, and they showed commitment. So what would you say to brands out there that still believe that sponsoring female riders doesn't pay off?
Yeah, I really like to work with Canyon because I really believe in women's cycling, and I think it's also one of the growth markets nowadays in cycling. Maybe in the men's side is a bit more saturated. And I think still with women and also with children, I think really believe there's a growth market. So it's a smart from that perspective. I think to step into the sport where you can still grow. And yeah, I would say like also it's time for more women in the sport, also in those industries. We see nowadays still a little bit man dominated in the industry. So to get more women on board also would be a really good step to develop that part. But yeah, if they're really against it, I would like say like yeah, that is maybe then not the right approach to promote women's cycling.
I don't know. There's not many women like you who have created such a brand around them. So that it would be interesting for many brands to sponsor them. So, but when there are women like you who have created a brand around them, why would you think that because you have many followers, but not all of them obviously race bikes themselves? What do you think people who follow you can connect with through you as a person, even though they might not be racing themselves?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate of authenticity. So I always like to be authentic to the people. That's also why I like to be still connected with Canyon, because in my last 3 years I was racing for Canyon. I did win my biggest victory on the Canyon bike. So then it's really easy for me to promote this brand because I really feel connected to it, authentic, connected. And also I'm behind the core values of the brand. And yeah, actually, I was thinking like I started with your last question. Those sponsors that hesitate a little bit about women's cycling. I think women's cycling, one of the really strengths of this is that there are really interesting women in women's cycling, and they all have their own stories. And tell the stories of those women. What is driving them? And usually, it's not that money is not a driving thing. They have each their own story about what is driving them to give every day, day in, day out, to chase that goal, to get the best out of themselves. And I hope the sponsors will see this more and more, that women's cycling has a story of their own, and maybe invest some time and to make sure that those stories are told, because I think this way we can make women's cycling more interesting.
And did Kenyon help you a lot with telling your story, or was it more were you more the person telling the story?
Yeah, I use like for example, I like to join podcasts. That's a really nice moment to share a bit more your story, to take time. I said sometimes specifically yes to some kind of interviews because they were a bit more in depth and a bit more give you a bit more time and space to talk about your core values, what you believe, what you want to promote. I think that's quite important to choose sometimes a little bit, with your brain, also the right moments when you talk to the media. Kenya, of course, supported me in everything. So, and they still do, which is a super good thing. And they Also, for example, Roman Arnold is also really big with promote children, biking for children, what I also really like to do. So yeah, we have a common interest in that, and that makes it more easy to tell the story.
Hmm. Can you mention maybe those core values that you guys share, you and Canyon, or you and Roman maybe even?
Yeah, I think to get more women on bikes, I think to get more women into the sport, and not only women, I would say, like, take it general, to get more people on bikes. And that should not be a pro cycling level, just to get more people on bikes, that more people enjoy riding a bike. And yeah, but Arnold also really likes to have like more children into the sport, not at a high level, but that they just discover the bike, how fun it is. Yeah, you have a BMX background, you told me. I said, just told you, like, yeah, that's actually a sport, BMX, cyclocross, what I really like for children, because they really discover there how fun it is to ride a bike. And I think that is where it all starts. It should be fun to start riding the bike, to do a sport, and that can bring you to a pro cycling life and retire with 40 years old, like I did, with fun still on the bike. That's really the base for me, for, yeah, have a good life.
Yeah, I agree. The industry recently managed to bring a lot of people, new people, onto drop bar bikes. So, what is your take on how do you think the road cycling community in the entire scene has changed since you started?
Yeah, good one. When I started, I think it was less money involved in cycling, and I think nowadays is sometimes a bit my concern that we took a path with cycling that is only affordable for people with a lot of money. That you can only ride your bike when you have a lot of money, when you have the most expensive bike. But really, please, I really like that also Canyon launched like a quite an affordable bike, step-in bike, that they also have that low-level entry bikes. And that is not necessary to have the most expensive bike to have fun on your bike. Yes, when it comes to performance, when it comes to that high-end last second of, yeah, then it's really important. But just to enjoy your bike, I mean, like now I can also do that on an entry-level bike. And yeah, I'm sometimes a bit concerned that riding the bike was always a sport for the people that work hard, that have maybe not the most money. And I'm sometimes a bit concerned that it becomes a money for a people for, yeah, a sport for only for people with money. And yeah, that's one of my concerns. I think it's important to keep the sport open for everyone, for different nationalities, for people from different continents. And yeah, that is something really important to keep.
Cool. So coming to the end a little bit now, what do you think will be your movement that you have started now? What will you be known for? What do you want to be known for beside all these triumphs that you could celebrate, all those victories? What do you want to be known for?
Yeah, I think for my cycling career, I think I hope to inspire people, like, not to give up. To If you have some disappointment, and everyone has disappointments in their life, how to deal with those disappointments. Not focus on what you cannot do anymore, but focus on what you can still make out of the situation, given the circumstances. And I hope that with some examples I had, like after some broken bones or some nasty crashes just before the World Championships, or and other challenges, that, yeah, can inspire still people a little bit with that. And next to that, I think the movement, yeah, what I would like is that people have just fun on their bikes, and that fun is the basis for a lot of children to discover the bike, to get more people on bikes, men, women, everyone that discover the fun of it, how cool it is to ride your bike, to get more fit, to get more healthy on the bike. And if I can inspire some children, some people to use that bike and to get more people on the bikes, then I'm a really happy person.
Cool. And if you look at the bike industry, how do you think the bike industry could help support you with that idea?
Yeah, yeah. To have also that low level entry bike available for people that are new into the sport, that don't have a crazy amount of money yet. I know how hard it is when I started to ride my bike. It was quite an investment as a student to buy my first bike. It was €250, second-handed. but still it was a lot of money for me as a student, to also with all the bike gear you need. So yeah, I hope they focus not only on the high level, or they focus on people that have a bit more money, but it's like entrance for everyone. I also like that they make sometimes focus specific on women, to get women more on the bikes. And that is not with getting them on pink bikes, I would say, because I know a lot of women, they love more to ride actually the man bike. That I think women, you can attract really more women in a bike to design some cool designs on the bike. And it should not be women specific, but cool, nice clothing. Yeah, I can see with my friends and family that they get motivated from cool designs and nice designs on bikes and clothes. So I think that's the way to get maybe more women into bike, and for sure more women into the bike industry would also be a good thing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks, Annemiek. It was great fun.
Thank you, Tim.
Movement. Branding for the bike industry is an ADLIPS studio creation. New episodes appear irregularly on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. If you like the episode, then please consider following the Movement podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. If you have any questions or comments, use the comment feature below this episode or go to adlips.io and send us a message. Thanks for listening.